What's going on, everybody? All right, so in this video, we are going to be talking about the 6 things you need to pay attention to when you read a mic spec sheet. This is not a head-to-head of the SM57 and the SE7. It's not what this video is. This is about how to understand what these different specs on your mic spec sheet are so you can make a more informed decision when you're selecting your next microphone. And those 6 things are the type of microphone, so the kind of microphone capsule that your microphone is using, its specific polar pattern, its frequency response curve, its signal to noise ratio, and the sensitivity. In my mind, that's about all that really matters. Let's start at the capsule, like what the actual kind of microphone is. This is a dynamic microphone. So the Shure SM57 is a dynamic microphone, whereas the SE Electronics SE7 is a condenser microphone. So what's the difference between that? A dynamic microphone does not require phantom power. A condenser microphone does require phantom power to work. It needs an electric current running through it in order to allow it to record sound. Polar pattern. I went into depth in polar pattern in my video where I'm talking about why you shouldn't use shotgun microphones for documentary filmmaking. If you haven't seen that video, check it out right here. But essentially the polar pattern is the field that your microphone is sensitive to sound. It's the directional field that your microphone actually records sound and picks up audio. Both of these microphones are cardioid pattern microphones. So basically what that means is they have essentially like a heart shape out in the front, kind of goes down just a little bit, but mainly it is a forward facing microphone, cuts down on anything, any sort of sound coming in from the sides and from the rear. So it has great side and rear axis rejection. It is essentially a front recording microphone. The next thing you want to pay attention to is the frequency range. Now your frequency range basically means the tones and the range of tones that your camera can record, okay? So the human ear can hear from a frequency range from 20 hertz up to 20 kilohertz, okay? That's the audible range that we're capable of hearing. So the SM57 records from 40 hertz up to 15 kilohertz, okay? The Audio-Technica 875R, this guy records between 90 to 20 kilohertz, and then this microphone records from 20 to 20. So it records the entire audible spectrum. That is a benefit, but it's also, it also can ding you, right? So it's great because for its purposes, this is primarily a instrument microphone for recording in studios, okay? So having the full audible spectrum is important because you want to be able to pick up the delicacies of the noise when you're in a studio environment. The reason why the 875R starts at 90 and then goes up to 20 is because this microphone is designed for on-camera use. So because it's designed for on-camera use, they just cut out the low end to reduce the amount of impact noise that it actually picks up. You don't necessarily want your microphone to record the entire frequency range. That doesn't necessarily mean it's good. Sometimes they are designed for specific purposes, so just be mindful of what you're wanting to record and what you're wanting to use your microphone for. So the 4th thing to be mindful of is the frequency response curve. Now the frequency response curve I feel like is extremely important. It's essentially what that means is it's how your microphone colors the sound. Think of the frequency response curve as a picture profile that you place on your footage, okay? When you select a specific picture profile, you're baking that color science into, and you're baking that look into your footage. That, in essence, is what the microphone's frequency response curve is. It's baking that sound into the audio. The SM57 has a frequency response curve that actually favors the high end. Not exactly sure why, but I'm pretty sure someone more knowledgeable can explain why that is. The AT875R has a kind of a funky frequency response curve. I feel like it kind of definitely favors the high end a little bit. The reason why I ended up actually choosing the SE7 is it has an extremely flat frequency response curve, meaning that it's giving a very natural recording and a very accurate recording to the sound. Is a flat frequency response curve required? Does that mean it's good? No, it's not what it means. Specific microphones have specific frequency response curves to benefit specific uses. So certain microphones might have certain curves that work really well with specific voices, or they work really well with recording specific sounds. Okay, so essentially what you need to determine is what are you using your microphone for and what frequency response curve is most ideal for that situation, and then make sure that you find a microphone that is coloring the sound in the way that you want it to be colored. Personally, I did not want my sound colored, so it was important for me to find a microphone that had a flat response curve. So that's why I went with the SE7. All right, the next thing that is really important is the signal to noise ratio of your microphone. Now, there's probably a lot of scientific stuff about what that actually means, but in its simplest terms, what that is communicating is how quiet your microphone is, the amount of self noise that it produces. So the Shure SM57, this is a dynamic microphone. So like I said at the beginning, dynamic means that it is not powered through phantom power. Because it's not electronically powered, okay, it doesn't produce any self noise. All right, so dynamic microphones on their own do not produce any self noise. When you're using condenser mics, which is most likely what we primarily will be using, with condenser mics, they do because they have the electronic signal running through them. That's going to produce feedback because you're pumping a signal to the microphone. So with signal to noise ratios, the higher the ratio, the better it is, right? So you want a high signal to noise ratio. Essentially what that means is like the distance between the signal and the noise is great enough that the noise doesn't matter, okay? So this guy, the Audio-Technica 875R, it has a signal to noise ratio of 74 dB. This guy has a signal to noise ratio of 78 dB. So you've got 4 decibels more between the two, which is fairly significant. So that is pretty awesome. Okay, so the final thing you really want to pay attention to is the sensitivity of your microphone. So because I'm primarily using my microphones as on-camera microphones, I'm powering them with the camera's preamps, okay? Usually, or it's kind of a general rule, that your camera's preamps aren't that great. They can't be that great because they're trying to fit all this stuff into one box. You're always better off getting a separate audio recorder with excellent preamps. However, that just starts to make everything extremely expensive, and then you're then having to worry about more and more stuff. To keep things simple, it's more beneficial to try to find microphones that are more sensitive. The reason for that meaning is that you don't have to use as much gain with a higher sensitivity microphone as you do with a lower sensitivity microphone in order to get a usable signal. Okay, so from my perspective, higher sensitivity microphones mean good things for us as filmmakers, because that means we're not pushing our camera's preamps too hard to get a good signal from them. So just to give you some sense of sensitivity, the SM57, which is a dynamic microphone, which we explained, is not electronically powered, which means that it relies upon the force of your audio waves to push the magnet inside of it, right? Like it needs more forced record sound than this microphone does. This has a sensitivity of 56 dBV over PA. And I think that's decibel volts over Pascal. Someone can correct me in the comments, please. I'm still trying to learn this stuff. So 56, okay, that's the number. The Audio-Technica mic, that has a sensitivity of -30, okay? And this has a sensitivity of -34.4 dBV over Pascal. All right, so that's just an expression of how much more force is required, how less sensitive this mic is to these two microphones. Because it's like they're literally on the complete opposite end of the scale. You need a lot of gain to get a signal from this microphone, whereas you need significantly less gain to get a signal from these two microphones. So, hope this was valuable to you guys. Just remember, from a filmmaker's perspective, you really only need to pay attention to 6 things on the mic spec sheet. Hope this helps you make better decisions when you're looking for your next microphone. If you have any questions, as always, please let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.